Yeah, chapter 4 on Monday. I talked to the editor. Chapter 4 on Monday. Sounds pretty good. Alright, I'm off of work now. I'm at home. See you later. Ambition is one of the things they say it's the most dangerous thing in the world. And ambition sometimes could be one of the most dangerous things in the world if you don't give it the respect that it deserves. And sometimes a lot of people nowadays have a very dangerous attitude when it comes down to ambition. They think of some imaginary future they're trying to chase after. They think of some alternative past. They think of some grand reality that they're trying to reach for. But what is ambition really? How do we pursue it in a way that's not going to cause a huge amount of self-destruction? That's this video's topic. Now let's have a chat. You know, according to a lot of people, everyone has a dream. And according to a lot of people, those dreams are not exactly easy to achieve. To me, ambition and reality and aspiration, they all start with a narrative in your head. They all start with some far-fetched idea, some North Star, or you want to be a full-time writer, you want to be a full-time artist, or you want to be a full-time corporate business person, or you want to be something else completely. But I think fundamentally the problem with ambition is that there's inherently a gap between your current reality and the aspirational kind of reality. But sometimes it's just so difficult to bridge the two worlds together. Sometimes your ambitious reality or your ambitious future of your reality, the future that you're trying to achieve, that's so far away from your reality sometimes that the two worlds, there really is a really obscure kind of relationship between these two worlds. That's why a lot of people get resentful when they don't reach that idealistic version of their lives. That's why a lot of people get pissed off and scared. They get iffy because they're stuck at a dead-end job, because they're stuck somewhere that they don't want to be, and there's this tantalizing vision up there for them to achieve. But sometimes the sad reality is that, according to Thomas Wolfe in the movie Genius, he had a line, he said this line on the train, which I think for me is just one of the truest things ever presented in a movie. He basically said, we're not the characters who we want to be. We're the characters who we are. We are sometimes not meant to pursue the reality that's aspirational, that's fictional, or that's far up there. But sometimes we have to return back to ourselves to really discover what we want, the kind of characters that we are, and the kind of future that are in store for us. And that's exactly why I want to talk about this idea in this video so desperately. And this idea basically in its essence means something like this. When your aspiration or when that fictional reality of yours turns into description, that's how you know you're achieving your dreams. That's how you know you're on the right path to achieving your dreams. People often think about pursuing a dream as a very linear process. You put in the work, you're achieving some aspirational reality, you're achieving some higher purpose, you're achieving the summit of your ambition, so to speak. But sometimes we don't realize that the summit that we're really pursuing, that's not really a fixed summit. It's not really stationary at all times. Sometimes it shifts around. Sometimes the target is ever moving, and sometimes there is no target for a period of time. And the worst thing we can do in these situations is to somehow hold on to a very hollow version of the aspiration and refuse to change our goals when we need to actually change our goals around. That's why I think self-awareness is super important. That's why I think keeping a personal journal for me, a storytelling journal for me, which I'll talk more about in a future video. But for me, it's very important for me to describe my reality as how it is on a daily basis, so I can look back on these journal diary entries and look back at who I was 2 months ago, who I was 6 months ago. Was I writing something? Was I struggling with a creative problem? Was I in love? Was I doing something completely different? Was I trying to pursue something that wasn't meant for me? See, pursuing your ambition, pursuing your ultimate vision of the summit, the ever-moving summit, is a process of realigning yourself to a version of that ultimate goal, to a version of that refined goal that ultimately, at some point, is going to make its way into your description of your present reality, which simply means sometimes your goals could be so refined that when you sit down to write about your surroundings, when you sit down to write about how your life is, sometimes you think to yourself, oh wow, I'm living this life, although for me it doesn't feel that exciting, but when I'm describing my life to other people feel genuinely excited for me. Other people are excited by the way I live my life. And when that description of your own life somehow resembles that more aspirational side of you, you'll know that you're on the right track. You'll know that anything that seems mundane to you might seem divine to another person. Any mundane description that you conjure up in your personal journal, they might go on to wow a lot of people. So it's all about having that self-awareness. It's all about having that awareness of yourself and your goals. And it's all about having a frame of reference of who you were a few months ago compared to who you are now. So in a sense, we're not really reaching for the stars. We're just making sure that you're being yourself whilst also living something that you're proud of. For example, recently, something that we started locally in Melbourne was a writing group called the Grave Circle. So the Grave Street is a very, very famous street in Melbourne. So we decided to gather together around the Grave Street and paste poems around Melbourne. So I grew up reading a lot of books about the Beat Generation, started listening to Jack Kerouac on the radio and all that kind of stuff. And when I was very much a younger guy, I harbored the aspiration of one day having a group of writers like that who I could hang out with, who I could have a drink with, and at the end of the day can do a lot of writing with. So as I was traversing through the streets with these writers, with these comrades, should I say, that was the moment when I realized I was actually living what I wanted to live, for example, 5 years ago. I was living the dream. And when I came back home, I wrote down a diary entry about that day. I wrote about that day. And when I was reading this material, when I had enough distance to step away from myself, and when I was reading this recounting of the day, that's when I realized I'm living the kind of writing life that I really wanted to live. I'm living the sort of artistic lifestyle that I aspired to live, a few years ago. So that's why I think it's very important that you take this to heart. When aspiration turns into description, that's how you know you're on the right track. And you need to make sure that your description is authentic to yourself in order to realign whatever the aspiration is, because sometimes aspirations could change, they could morph into different shapes, but you have to have that solid self-awareness first before you could shoot yourself off to some outer space, some target, on the moon or something. So, if we think about ambition in this way, then it quickly becomes the case that ambition actually has absolutely nothing to do with how good your genes are, how good looking you are, or how amazing you are at a certain ability. Everything that it has to do comes down to this one point. When you aspire to a reality, and when you write about your own reality, if that reality that you write down is something that you're happy with, you are already on your way towards achieving your dream. If your ambition and your aspiration matches with your daily descriptions of your life, and you know something's going right, and you know something is definitely know something's heading toward the right direction. Good. And that is basically my take on ambition. And now we have our coffee in hand, and before I let you go, before I let you off the hook, let me tell you a little bit about today's video sponsor, Shortform. Shortform is a platform that's going to, in a sense, reduce the amount of time that you have to spend summarizing books in your commonplace book. So I've talked about the commonplace book so many times on this channel, and I think it's one of the greatest tools that you can use to conceptualize your understanding of reality, understanding of literature, philosophy, and the world in general. Sometimes the problem with books, and for creative people especially, is that when you read something, you tend to suck all the inspiration out of it, but the content of the book you tend to forget a lot of the times. And then you have to make a lot of effort to scribble notes down in the margins, have to spend a lot of time on Evernote collecting all the thoughts that you have about this book, and sometimes you lose the book and you lose all your notes. Well, Shortform is going to solve all of those problems for you by providing an excellent service to really succinct and really to-the-point book summaries. And if you have the problem of not having a place to keep all your notes, well, Shortform is in a sense the perfect platform for you to gain direct access to some of the greatest book summaries ever. And this week's recommendation is actually one of the business classics called Deep Work by Hal Newport. This book basically shaped how I work and really shaped how I operate this creative channel, how I operate everything in my life, including writing, including directing these videos, including making these videos and publishing them out on time. And I think deep work is such an important concept, and basically argues that in the 21st century, as a creative or as someone who's really deep in one of these fields, it's very important for us to have uninterrupted time of focus, because focus is such a rare skill to have nowadays. And I'm so glad that I've read deep work when I was quite a young man. And as a lucky viewer of this channel, Shortform is offering all of you guys a free trial to Shortform and a discount on your annual subscription to Shortform if you click the link in the description down below. And those are some of my thoughts on ambition and pursuing your dreams and everything in between. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my friend Hano from Written and Directed by Hano on TikTok. And he basically urged me to create these more cinematic video essays, to create videos that are actually more than just me talking in front of the camera. And that's really the interesting thing with hanging out with other creatives, is that you tend to learn a lot from the other person, and the other person tends to learn a lot from you, so we're just bouncing off of each other's creative energy here. Anyhow, RC Waldun here, and I will see you in the next video.